Hello, everybody. So, psychedelics are a really hot topic these days, and I'm hearing a lot about it in the entrepreneur world and have for the last few years. So, if you're joining us today, you're probably curious about psychedelics. Maybe you've already done them. Maybe it reminds you of, university days, or here you are now as an entrepreneur and you want to know more. So my name is Laura Beauperlant. I'm the founder of Lab Creative, the author of Brand Chemistry, and the creator of Brand Camp. And I'm so excited to be joined by my good friend and colleague, Alison Crosthwait. And we're going to be talking about all things psychedelics. So thank you for joining me, Alison.
I'm so happy to be here, Laura. Thank you.
Awesome. So this is a whole new world now. I feel like there's so much more talk about psychedelics. There's, things on Netflix about it. It's in the media a lot. Can you share with people a little bit about your journey to how you got to this place in your career and business?
Sure. So I was one of those people who had never experimented in my youth, and it had not been of interest to me. But I went through a couple really big losses in my adult life, and the cracks in my foundation and some traumas that I'd experienced started to show themselves, and I was really needing some help. And so I started going on a healing journey. And along the way, I sort of heard about ayahuasca. And when you just know?
Yes, I do know.
And I'm still amazed because ayahuasca, that didn't mean anything to me. I couldn't have told you anything about it, but I knew I had to go. And I went on one journey, and everything kind of came apart, and not how I expected it to at all. And that's something to know about this journey. Psychedelics don't do as we ask them to do. They do as they will. And so many things were shown to me, and I knew that I had to keep going. And over a 2-year period, I worked with ayahuasca 25 times, and I rewired all the patterns, all these ways of being that weren't serving me. And I didn't even realize it was happening. I just knew I had to keep going. And then people started to say to me, like, you're different. And I would turn towards the light in this new way. I was becoming all primal and completely changing. And so as I continued, I was a psychotherapist at the time, I started to think, like, how can I help my clients more? And the answer really was twofold. You have to not be a psychotherapist anymore. And maybe you can work with a medicine like psilocybin that is more introductory, more palatable, easier to kind of work with on all different levels, microdosing and macrodosing, and provide really big transformation to people. And here I am.
I know. Amazing. So I know we've got some people joining us. So if you want to pop in, if you have questions for Alison about psychedelics, about microdosing or macrodosing or what that is, please do share it in the comments so that she can answer these questions, because we're here to engage in this conversation and really, take it wherever you would like to take it. So what do you see? Because I know psychedelics have been used to help people with depression and PTSD and trauma and addiction. How do you see it helping entrepreneurs, since that's who, is most likely going to be watching? My audience is entrepreneurs. So how can it help the entrepreneurial journey?
Right. So microdosing or macrodosing can help you with any intention that you're working towards. So if it's a question of focus, clarity, vision, mood, vitality, all of these are wonderful intentions to bring to psychedelics. Psychedelics are like, this is one way that I talk about psilocybin. Let me be really specific. I think of psilocybin as like the most amazing therapist.
Right.
But it's your internal therapist. You can't really argue with them. And well, you can, but you don't really, because it's like a expanded version of yourself that you encounter. And so depending on your intention, they will bring you exactly what you need in the moment. And sometimes that's feelings, sometimes that's vision, sometimes that's physical healing. The experience varies with everybody.
Yeah, and I will share that I did this experience with Allison. So I have personal experience, and just when you said that, it really resonated with me because I remember going into the experience saying, I need to listen. Like something's trying to come to me that I can't access. That was a sticking point for me. That I was like, I'm at this cusp of something, and my logical brain is preventing me from tapping into what this is. And I'm like, I just need to listen. And I remember sharing with you that the first thing that happened is I lost my hearing. Like I couldn't, I felt like I was like underwater. Like it was the weirdest feeling. And I was like, oh, I need to listen to myself. It was such a profound moment. And I still remember that very deeply because I was like, oh, I need to not listen to what other people want me to do or think I should be doing. It's like really that time to go deep inside and listen to myself and get that clarity on my own journey. So that
Amazing.
was,
That was amazing.
yeah. And so, like you said, it gives you what you need, not, I thought I was going to be like, I don't know what voice I thought I was going to be hearing, but I heard nothing. And that was like very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're so generous. Like they love us so much. It's just amazing.
So I know like for me, I was feeling kind of stuck in something and having trouble kind of breaking through. Are there specific areas that you find it is more helpful or more beneficial when people are at this place? Like say you're an entrepreneur and like right now you're like, do I pivot? Do I keep going? Do I completely change everything? Like, is there I mean, it can be whatever they want it to be.
Yeah. I mean, with the exception of like a few things that I don't recommend it for, it really works on your intention. So all those things. And I'm in a microdosing cycle right now, and you know, I I sometimes ask for clarity, and it's very much just about, yeah, should I make this decision or that decision? And sometimes it's deeper around habits that I want to shift. I mean, it can be anything.
And so I'm sure there's, tons of people have done, mushrooms back in the day. I remember having conversations like, oh yeah, I did that back in university kind of thing. And,
Yeah.
for me, just like you, that was never something I did because I was on prescription medication after my car accident. So I didn't need to go find anything else. I was given fairly intense painkillers, which are a very different experience, but it was just never something that I
Right.
explored. So it was a very new experience. And, so can you just talk through sort of the difference between kind of the microdosing and the macrodosing and the benefits, pros and cons, or how you see both of them working for people?
Yeah, sure. So they can work together or either or. Microdosing is a sub hallucinogenic dose. So that means you don't feel anything. Now, as you're figuring out the dose, you might feel something. But the idea is that you're not actually having effects, that the effects are much more subtle. They're more like, oh my gosh, I haven't had a negative thought in 2 days. It's like, oh, hello, Rubens. Um, that's the microdosing. And what I really recommend for the microdosing is choosing a container, choosing a protocol, saying, okay, I'm going to take it twice a week for 8 weeks with this intention, and seeing the process through, as opposed to, oh, I just want to chill tonight, I'm going to take half a gram. That to me isn't microdosing as much as a lifestyle kind of habit, which is wonderful, but not for healing so much. The macrodosing, I think it's particularly great. This is like a full trip, which is usually upwards of a gram, 1 to 3 usually. And you need space for that. I suggest you have a facilitator, or at minimum a trip sitter, and that you have a plan for integration afterwards. And though it can be used for very similar intentions, but it's also great for stuck, and like really big stuck or resistance, and for trauma healing. when there's bigger things to work through, it can be a real kind of work it through. And then I think that microdosing is a nice way to support your integration.
So you've worked as a psychotherapist. So how do you find in terms of like, people can be in therapy for years and still be struggling with the same kind of things, or it can take a long time because they don't have access to some of that stuff that we block on a conscious level.
Yeah.
So how does this play in terms of like helping tap into that deeper to accelerate your healing process?
Yeah, that's exactly what it does. If you are willing to look, you can see anything you want to see. Like, it's astonishing. Everything from a little tiny conflict you're having with someone, even if you take if you were to take a light dose and ask to understand that person, you will understand that person. Like you can go anywhere you want to. The question is how much we're able and willing to see, how much we want to see, because like we said, it's a great theme for our conversation. They don't follow our rules, just like life doesn't follow our rules. So what I see, I can't control. And sometimes I'm like, no. And what we see about ourselves, but if we can just breathe through it and be through it. I remember I went through a whole number of ceremonies while I was going through a breakup, and I was shown over and over again how much I hurt my partner. And I was crying. It was awful because I, to this day, love him very, very much. And we have a beautiful relationship now, I think partly because of all that willingness to see how much I hurt him.
So it allows you to see things that you don't normally allow yourself to see.
That's right.
It's such a fascinating, and it's so interesting how now it's coming back into on vogue. Like it's almost like the new cannabis. Like it was, a number of years ago that was like illegal and you couldn't have it, and now it's legal and it's like it's this big thing. And yet I feel like psilocybin is so much more powerful and profound in terms of how it can impact your life in a positive way.
Absolutely. I mean, I see it every day. I'm surprised. This is the beauty of the life I've created, because basically all my messaging apps are constantly giving me reports how amazing mushrooms are, because it's astonishing what's possible. Things that as a therapist, I could have said, oh, look here, just look, just please, just look. And they never look. Because we can receive things from these medicines because they show us in just our way. This is the amazing thing, is they're different for everybody. So I'm just constantly amazed to witness what's happening.
Yeah. So what kind of things, I know obviously I'm not asking you to name names, but like what kinds of shifts have you seen people experience in the journeys that you've been a part of?
Oh, sure. So say someone's going through a breakup that really they needed to go through the breakup, but they're still not quite sure if they did the right thing. And they're still, that toss-up period of like, I know this isn't right for me, but also I can't really leave, can I? I've seen someone go from that place to 2 hours into a ceremony. When I check in on them, they're like, and I remind them of their intention. They're like, what? It's so obvious. Like they're so obvious they can't even remember where they were. And I'm speaking to them as if I'm speaking to someone from 100 years ago. Like, it's amazing. And of course, it's not always like that, but that's an example of someone who's been in therapy for a long time, done a lot of work on themselves, but shifting so quickly.
So who is it not for? Because I know it's not for everybody. And there are some things around that, maybe you can share a little bit about that.
So the first thing that I'm really claiming a space for here is our intuitive body knowing. This is not something that we should go to the doctor and the doctor says, take this, or that you go to someone. If anybody's telling you to do it, that's a big warning sign. You have to feel this desire. And you'll notice you might feel a desire towards a certain medicine and not another one. For example, psilocybin, LSD, different energies. There are some psychedelics that I know are not for me right now, and I will never try because my body freezes when I hear the energy. So I'm really supportive of us coming into contact with our own intuitive response. That being said, there are some clear contraindications, 3 in particular. One is if you are living with any type of diagnosis like schizophrenia, some kinds of bipolar, anything, any antipsychotic medications, I would be very wary. And I could go down a whole rabbit hole telling you what I think about those actual diagnoses. I don't necessarily take them as what the Western medical system says they are. But if we're talking about supporting people in functioning in this world, I wouldn't pursue psychedelics under that diagnosis. Another contraindication is pregnancy. The truth is, there's basically been no research done on it, but I wouldn't experiment.
That makes sense to me.
It makes sense to me too. I feel like this needs to be said because there are a lot of medications that they give women in pregnancy that I don't agree with myself, but worth saying. And the other one is if you're in crisis and you do not have support, whether that's financial, emotional, any type of crisis, these are not the medications that are going to bring you back into the zone of tolerance. Eventually they will, but if you're hyper-regulated or hypo-regulated, which is a traumatic response like fight or flight or play dead response, these medicines are not necessarily going to bring you in here in the right speed. They're going to bring you out to bring you in. And so you want to have enough ground under you in terms of the support around you and your home and all of this to be able to incorporate that.
Yeah, because it really opens you up and you need to, like, you're kind of exposed in a way, I would say. And then you need to make sure that you're not putting yourself into a situation or just going and getting back into like, all right, back to real life now. And that could be a little bit challenging to process. So I don't know if anybody has any questions for Allison about psychedelics. Feel free to comment in the chat. Allison, do you feel like there's anything else that people should know? You know, if you're thinking about entrepreneurs and the audience, what would you say are like the top 3 benefits to somebody if they were intrigued and wanting to experience something like this with you or with somebody else facilitating this experience?
Well, I think I want to address my comments to people who identify as women in particular, because there is a lot of conversation that's directed at the results-oriented male side of things, which is amazing. And I notice that many women are trepidatious, which is fair. And also, this is what I see as the big benefit. We are reconnected to our life force, which is our worth. And once you are connected to your own life force energy, you cannot doubt yourself. And we as women need that so much. We are told so many things that we should do and be, and we are full of ideas of who we should be. And the world is really good at telling us this. And if there's one thing that female entrepreneurs struggle with, it's this imposter syndrome, self-doubt piece. And microdosing and macrodosing with good integration is a really powerful way to get at that root cause, which then spills over into everything: money, relationships, all of this. It's a natural, energetic filling up of your cup to be able to step into who you want to be. And that's why I'm passionate about this. And let me tell you, there's been so much self-doubt because do I want to be the drug lady? Like, no. Like, not in your life. But when I see the power of what's possible and what I've seen happen, I can't not stake a claim for the power of these medicines for women and men.
Yeah, that's so well said. And I appreciate that you're stepping into that, even though you're like, I don't want to be known as the drug lady. You're like, and yet this is what I need to be doing. And you're really answering that call. And just to clarify too, like, this is not like that trip where you're, I mean, for me, and it may be different for everybody, but it's portrayed in the movies like, you're seeing things and it's fun and it's this like trippy, hippie kind of experience. And it was challenging for me. I it was not an easy experience, nor was the next day, because it was like, you know, it was profound. It was deep. It wasn't about, hey, this is fun. There was some deep things happening that I needed to process and did for quite a while afterwards. So I think having somebody facilitate it, and Allison, you were amazing at supporting me through that. And I'm sure you are with everyone you work with, and just holding that space to experience it and go through all of the emotions and know what to do with what you've learned about yourself from that experience. So that's
Oh,
really
this is
magical.
beautifully said. And I'm so glad you said it, because we cannot have a conversation without saying this is not easy.
It was not. I was trying to get away at some point. I was like, I remember looking for the door. I was like, how do I get out of here? It was like, getting out of a room wouldn't have helped me. But it's not for the fun of it. It's for the impact and the what it allows you to be able to see and do. And it's shifted how I journal. It's shifted how I start every day, the intentions I set. And I've consistently started each day very intentional about how I want to live each day. And that stems from the work that we did together. And that was really profound for me. And it was always there, but it's just tapping into that on a deeper level. And I also feel like for women, especially, nothing against the men, but we care a lot. We care so deeply about so many things. And I realized I need to stop caring about so many things because I can't carry that burden. I need to, as I remember sharing this with you, I need to care less so I can care more.
Yes.
Because all of the caring just spreads you too thin, and then you just end up not caring enough about the things that really matter. And that was a big shift too. And just having that insight into like, I don't have to carry the burden of everything and everybody on my shoulders and care about everything. I need to figure out what I want to deeply care about and like double down on that and throw my heart into it.
It's beautiful. Yes.
And that came from this experience that we had together. So,
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So if anybody has questions, please pop in the chat. Otherwise, Allison, how can people connect with you? If they want to learn more, they want to have a ceremony with you, connect with you about your microdosing course, where's the best way for them to connect with you?
You bet. So for microdosing, go to expandwithmicrodosing.com. And there I have a recorded talk that tells you more about how I see microdosing, and it gives you all the tools to decide if it's right for you or not. You can also hit me up anywhere on social media, in particular Instagram at Alison Crosthwait. And I'm happy to get on a call, connect with Allison.com and talk through if you want to do a ceremony I have a program at the end of March, a weekend for the Toronto area people. If they'd like to have an introductory ceremony experience, I'd love to have you.
Amazing. And I'll make sure we get those links and we can pop that into the comments. So if anybody now or watching the replay later wants any information about how to work with you, I'll make sure that we get that. So thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. I hope this helped people watching or anybody watching the replay just kind of understand a little bit more about how psychedelics could play a role in you expanding as an entrepreneur and stepping into the next level of you and connecting with yourself on a deeper level. So thank you so much.
I want to acknowledge you. I really acknowledge you for opening this conversation in the entrepreneurial space and on your platform. I'm grateful to you for this opportunity, and I hope it serves many people.
Yeah. And, I was debating, I'm like, do I share that I had this experience with you? I was having my own like little existential crisis. Like, do I talk about this publicly? And then I was like, well, why not? I'm all about authenticity and sharing. And I learned so much about myself from this profound experience. Why would I hide that? And that to me was like, what am I hiding? Because I fear people will judge me, or I don't know. But I had to even think about that for myself before this conversation. How do I want to show up? And because I've experienced this, I would not have brought my whole self to this conversation, because I would have been hiding, pretending like I didn't experience this, and that would have been inauthentic of me. So it sounds like we do have a question from Jun. Hi, Allison. I know you from the okay, let me show it. From the interview about the film Finding the Hygge. Will you still practice as a psychotherapist or focus more on psychedelics? Thanks for the question.
Yeah, good to see you. I'm glad you saw that. I have stepped away from my license as a registered psychotherapist because, well, there were many reasons, but working with psychedelics is incompatible with being a regulated healthcare practitioner at this time in Ontario.
So that is that's the reason. Those two things don't go together.
And so for that reason, I don't deal with serious mental health, however you want to define that. I don't deal with serious mental or emotional health. I make referrals. I work primarily with people who are already high functioning.
And that was something I mentioned to you as well, Allison, is that I loved the fact that you have that background as a psychotherapist. And so you are bringing both the, kind of the science and the woo side of this space together. And I felt such deep trust, because I felt like you could support me in more than just one aspect, that you didn't just take a weekend course on how to facilitate a psychedelic experience, right? Like, you have this background. And so I would definitely encourage anybody considering it. Allison is magical, and will really hold you in that experience. So thank you so much.
I appreciate your support and your endorsement very much. And I think you're bringing up a broader, really important point, because this is a burgeoning space. And there are big emotional pieces that come out in this work. And I like to tell the story. Where I went to psychotherapy school, we spent 3 years studying before we ever saw a client. 3 years.
Wow.
And I will not say anything about any specific containers I have been in that tell you to see clients and solve all their problems in 1 minute after 1 day's course. But marketing is not the same thing as substance. We know this in our heads, but we need to know it in our bodies. And I encourage you, when you're looking for a facilitator, to look for people who've been working and studying in the field for a long time.
Yeah. You don't want to mess around. You want somebody who's going to support you, because you could get cracked open, and you want to know that there's somebody there to help you kind of mend and heal from that experience. Amazing. So thank you so much, Allison. Thank you for joining us today. I'll make sure we get those links in the comments for the things that Allison shared. Join me next week. I'll be here with Ginger Johnson. We're going to be talking all things around the power of deep connections. So that will be next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern as well. And thanks again, Allison, and have a great day, everybody.